Welcome to this special series of interviews with author of No Sun Without Shadow, Roger Selegue. This series of interviews with Roger will focus on the writings of his friend and author of Eclipse by Shadow and The Golden Spark from the Legend of the Great Horse series, written by author John Royce. And now here's part one of Roger Selegue's interviews with host Ray Ibarra. We are here with the author of No Sun Without Shadow, Roger Selegue, as he discusses his thoughts about John Royce's second novel of his trilogy, The Golden Spark. Roger, it's great to be here with you this rainy Monday morning.
It's great to be with you also, and I thank you for coming in.
As an author yourself, Roger, what draws you to follow the works of John Royce?
Well, he's a friend. He's also a person who reviewed No Sun Without Shadow. He's a person with great insight into the novel I wrote, and he saw much more than the simple story that I had portrayed, and he saw the different levels that I was working at, especially since being an admirer of Albert Camus, and especially the myth of Sisyphus, which is like another major character in the novel. John was able to pick up on this. So I have great respect for his judgment, and I have great respect for his writing ability, as I've now read 2 out of 3 of the Great Horse trilogies. Now, when it comes to horses, I made friends with a barrister in Australia some years ago who reminds me of John to the degree that the barrister loved horses, knows the history, raced them, sold them, and bet on them.
So he did it all then, huh?
and he still is, I know. John, to my surprise, was born in California, evidently near Santa Anita, which in my first novel concerning people in the boarding house was a big day going to the racetrack and betting and all that goes with it. I used to go, when I was working near the racetrack, I used to stop for the 6th race because you can get in free, and people would hand me their programs and everything, and I would usually put a bet on the 6th race. So I was rather enamored superficially with the horses, but John is a different animal. He knows them, he knows the history, he loves them, he's worked with them, and in many ways, he has devoted his life to the horses. I should say he writes much differently from me. My writing has been compared, which I love, to John Steinbeck's style. His is much cleaner. It's not Hemingway-esque. It's not that tough guy. But his style, I would term as a writer, is much cleaner than mine. A writer who won an Academy Award that I was friendly with for some time, John Mann, said my writing showed that I was in love with words, and which is probably still true to this day. But I'm hoping to get John to help me with the current novel that I'm with, and which is approaching 400 pages, and which I hope he had indicated in No Sun Without Shadow that some of it could be cut. And I will say I stopped it. In No Sun, the woman who did edit it cut 100 pages and wanted to cut more. I put some back. And when I edit, the problem is I get rid of one sentence and I usually rewrite and put 2 more back in. I feel the novel, which I believe in, and I believe that John believes in the subject, will have to be cut to some degree. But I don't know how much it can take. But I'm looking to him to review it, to give me his opinion. And I'm hoping, in the meantime, to help him because I am falling in love with his heroine, Megan, who starts out at about 13, and at this point in the second novel is 17, and the quest for the great horse. One thing I just said in passing, he put a disclaimer on the second novel that the horses can't fly. For me, it killed kind of an illusion. I think anybody with any sense knows horses can't fly. But he makes it all seem so real and so logical, by the way, that I found that kind of disclaimer gets in the way. It's a very minor thing. But I had the feeling he'd been getting criticism somehow. And I wanted to be one that said, I like it like he wrote it. I like what he's doing. It's magnificent. Also, John is a historian, and he takes great pride in that history that he knows. So one of the things I noticed about the novel is that this is a fantastic story, but in the reading and the dealing with the girl, who initially is only 13, he also, from my point of view as a writer, observes the rules of writing and telling a story. And one of them is you have to lay a foundation. And he does that very ably and very unobtrusively. And one of the things in the first novel, he sets the stage for the great horse with Mrs. Bridgestone, whom Megan believes all the way, whose mother is there with Mrs. Bridgestone, listening to her talk about the great horses and the flying horses, and what she tells Megan, this is all a lot of gibberish. There is no such thing. But it lays a foundation, Megan believes, and later we come across at 106 to a woman, a gypsy-like woman, when Megan is now in England, laying down the same rules about finding the great horse.
We hope you've enjoyed part 1 of Roger Selegue's interviews about the writings of author John Royce. For questions or comments about this interview, you may go to John's website, thegreathorse.com, thegreathorse.com. Until next time, this is your host, Ray Ibarra. Have a wonderful week.